The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was the largest building ever made by any species. It floated in the empty space between three star systems, a massive sphere of white metal and glowing crystal. Inside, thousands of seats rose up like steps in a bowl, and in those seats sat the representatives of every known intelligent species in the galaxy. Today, the hall was full. News had spread that the humans were finally coming to answer questions about their strange civilization. Many species had waited years for this moment. Ambassador Park walked through the tall doors first. She was a small woman with black hair pulled back tight against her head. Her face showed nothing. No fear, no pride, no worry. Behind her came Admiral, a large man with gray hair and scars on his neck and hands. His uniform was simple and dark. Next to him walked Commander Lee, younger than both of them, but with eyes that had seen too much death for someone her age. The three humans walked to the center of the hall and stopped. All around them, alien faces watched. Some had too many eyes. Some had no eyes at all. Some floated in tanks of water or gas. Some were made of living crystal that caught the light and split it into rainbows. The high priest stood from his seat. He was twice as tall as any human, and his body was made of something like purple glass. When he moved, he made soft ringing sounds like bells. He was very old, even by the standards of his long-lived species, and he had studied the religions of thousands of worlds. "Welcome, humans," he said. His voice came through translation machines that made his words clear to everyone. "We have called you here today to ask about something that troubles us greatly." Nodded once, "We are here to answer." The high priest looked down at a floating screen in front of him. "We have studied the beliefs of 4,892 spacefaring species. Every single one of them, without exception, has a god of war in their religious history, a divine being that blesses battles, a spirit that forgives killing, a holy power that makes violence sacred." He paused and looked directly at. "But humanity has no such deity. Your records, your histories, your ancient texts, nothing. There is no human god of war. How is this possible?" The hall was completely silent. Every species leaned forward, curious to hear the answer. The ambassador clicked his hard shell body with interest. His species looked like giant insects with too many legs. They had one of the most violent war gods in the galaxy, a deity that demanded the bodies of enemies be eaten after battle. The ambassador bubbled in his water tank. His people were like beautiful fish with human-like hands. Their war god lived in the deep ocean of there, and they sacrificed ships to him before every conflict. The representative shifted his gaseous form. His species existed as clouds of thinking gas, and their war god was a storm that never ended, spinning somewhere in the atmosphere of their home planet. All of them had war gods. All of them understood that intelligent beings needed divine permission to kill. Without such permission, how could soldiers sleep at night? How could generals give orders? How could nations send their young people to die? Looked at, then at, something passed between them, a silent agreement. It was time to tell the truth. "You are wrong," said. Her voice was calm and clear. "We did have a god of war, once." The high priest's crystal body flickered with confusion. "But our research shows nothing. We found no temples, no prayers, no holy books dedicated to such a being." "That is because we destroyed them all," replied. "Every temple, every prayer, every book. We erased him from our history on purpose." The hall erupted in noise. Aliens shouted questions. Some gasped in horror. The ambassador's legs scraped against each other in what might have been fear or excitement. The high priest raised a crystalline hand for silence. Slowly, the noise died down. "You destroyed the records of your own god," he asked. "Why would any species do such a thing?" His face remained calm, but something old and cold moved behind her eyes. Something that had been passed down through thousands of human generations, a memory that lived in blood and bone. "We did not just destroy the records," she said. We destroyed the god himself." Now the silence was absolute. No one moved. No one spoke. The translator machines hummed quietly, but they had nothing to translate. The ambassador finally spoke, his voice bubbling up through his water tank. "That is impossible. Gods cannot be killed. They are eternal. They are beyond physical form." Stepped forward, his face was hard as stone. "Your gods cannot be killed," he said. "Human gods are different. They are made from human belief, human faith, human worship," he paused, "and human rejection." "What happened to your god of war?" the high priest asked. His voice was barely a whisper now. Looked around the hall. She saw the fear growing in alien eyes. She saw species that had conquered star systems starting to feel small and uncertain. "We killed him," she said simply. "We killed him because he was too soft. He loved us too much. He wanted to protect us from ourselves, and we could not accept that from a god of war." She took a breath. "So we did what humans do when something stands in our way. We removed it, completely, forever." The high priest sat down slowly, as if his crystal legs could no longer hold him. "Tell us," he said, "tell us everything." And so Ambassador Park began to tell the story that humanity had buried for 10,000 years. The story of the god who loved too much, and the children who loved victory more. 10,000 years before humans ever looked at the stars, there lived a god named. He was the god of war, and he was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Stood taller than any mountain. His skin was the color of old bronze, and his eyes burned like two small suns. When he walked across the world, the ground shook. When he spoke, thunder rolled across the sky. His arms were thick with muscle, and he carried a spear made from the spine of some ancient monster that had died before humans existed. Every nation, every tribe, every village prayed to before battle. Warriors painted his symbols on their shields. Mothers whispered his name when their sons went to fight. Dying soldiers called out to him with their last breath, hoping he would carry their souls to a place of honor. And answered them. He appeared on battlefields in clouds of red mist. He blessed weapons with his touch. He gave strength to tired arms and courage to frightened hearts. He was everything a god of war should be. But had a secret, a weakness, a flaw that none of the other gods understood. He loved humanity too much. Other gods saw humans as tools, as sources of power, but saw them as his children. He watched them grow from small tribes into great nations. He saw them learn to make fire, to build homes, to plant crops. He loved their songs and their stories and their dreams. And because he loved them, he hated watching them die. The warrior was one of the greatest fighters of his age. He had killed 100 men in battle. His sword was famous across 3 kingdoms. One night, after winning a great victory, he knelt before his temple to give thanks. "Great," prayed, "bless me with more strength. Tomorrow we march against the river people. I want to crush them completely. I want their children to fear my name for 1,000 years." The temple grew cold, the candles flickered, and then himself appeared before. The warrior fell on his face in fear and joy. To see his god in person was the greatest honor possible. But when looked up, he saw something strange. The god of war was crying. Golden tears ran down his bronze face and dripped onto the temple floor, where they hissed and burned like acid. "My child," said, and his voice was soft, not thunderous, "must you always fight? The river people are not your enemies. They are hungry. Their crops failed this year. If you shared your grain with them, they would be your friends." Stared at his god. He could not believe what he was hearing. "You are the god of war," he said. "You should want me to take their heads. You should want me to burn their villages. That is what war gods do." Shook his great head. "I want you to live," he said. "I want your sons to live. I want your grandsons to live. Every time you go to battle, some of my children die. Human lives are so short already. Why must you make them shorter?" Left the temple that night with confusion in his heart. He told no one what he had seen. He thought perhaps he had dreamed it. But soon, other warriors began to have similar experiences. Generals would pray for victory and hear whisper about peace instead. Soldiers would ask for blessed weapons and receive visions of their enemies as children, as fathers, as frightened men who just wanted to go home. Could not help himself. He was tired, so tired. He had watched millions of his children die in mud and blood and fire. He had heard their screams and their prayers. He had felt their last moments of pain and fear. And finally, after thousands of years, he broke. He stopped blessing battles. When armies met on the field, instead of strengthening the warriors, would appear between them and beg them to stop. He healed wounded soldiers on both sides. He collapsed siege towers with gentle winds. He made weapons rust and break. The other gods of humanity watched with growing worry. The goddess, who ruled wisdom and knowledge, came to speak with. "Brother," she said, "I understand your pain, but you cannot change your nature. You are what humans made you. A god of war must love war or he is nothing." Looked at her with his burning eyes, now dim with sadness. "How can I love something that kills my children?" "They are not just your children," said gently. "They are ours, all of ours, and they need a war god. Without you they will fight anyway, but they will fight with guilt and shame and confusion. You give them permission to do what they will do regardless. You give them peace after violence." "I cannot give them peace," said. "I can only give them more violence, and I am tired of it." Left without another word. She knew what was coming. She had seen it in the stars, in the patterns of human thought that flowed like rivers across the world. Humanity was about to make a terrible choice. And their gentle, loving god of war would be the first casualty. The warlord was the most feared man alive. He had conquered half the known world. His armies stretched from the frozen mountains in the north to the burning deserts in the south. Cities opened their gates when they heard his name. Kings knelt before him without being asked. But there was one city that would not surrender. The city of stood alone against him. It was the last free place in the world, and its people had decided they would rather die than submit. Brought his entire army to the walls of 100,000 soldiers, 10,000 horses, siege weapons that could throw stones heavier than elephants. He looked up at the walls and smiled. By tomorrow, this city would be ash and memory. That night before the final attack went a pray. He built a small altar in his tent and called out to God of War, he said, "Tomorrow I will finish my conquest. I will kill every man in that city. I will sell their women and children as slaves. I will tear down their temples and salt their fields. Give me your blessing." The air grew heavy. The candles in the tent flickered and went out, and then appeared. He was smaller than the stories said. His bronze skin was dull, not shining. His burning eyes were dim. He looked like a god who had been sick for a very long time. Said, and his voice cracked like old wood, "Please, do not do this thing." The warlord stared at his god. "What?" "The people have surrendered in their hearts," said. "They are afraid. They know they cannot win. If you show them mercy now, they will serve you willingly. You can have peace, real peace, not the silence of the grave, but the quiet of people living together." Felt something he had not felt in years. Anger, pure, burning anger at this pathetic thing that called itself a god. "I do not want peace," he said slowly. "I want victory. I want blood. I want the world to know that I am the greatest conqueror who ever lived. That is what you are supposed to give me. That is your purpose." Reached out a hand. It was shaking. "I cannot give you blood anymore. I have given too much already. My children are dying. Every battle takes more of them. Please, you have enough. You have more than any man has ever had. Stop now. Rest. Be satisfied." Looked at the hand. He looked at the weak, broken god standing in his tent, and he made a decision. "You are not a god," he said. "You are a disappointment. You are a failure, and I do not need you." He spat at its feet. The god flinched as if struck. "Please." But the warlord was not finished. He walked out of his tent and stood before his army. 100,000 men looked at him in the torchlight. "Listen to me," shouted. His voice carried across the camp like the sound of drums. "Our god of war has betrayed us. He no longer wants us to win. He wants us to make friends with our enemies. He wants us to be weak." The soldiers muttered, "This was impossible. This could not be true." "I am telling you what I saw with my own eyes," continued. "Is no longer fit to be our god. He has forgotten what we need. He has forgotten what war means. So I say this to all of you, and I say it to every human across the world who can hear me in their dreams." He raised his sword to the sky. The blade caught the torchlight and gleamed like fire. "We reject this God. We reject his mercy and his love and his weakness. We do not want a God who cries. We do not want a God who heals our enemies. We want a God who gives us victory, or we want no God at all." The word spread, not just through the camp but through the world. Every human alive heard them in their sleep that night. Every man and woman and child felt the question being asked in their hearts. "Do you reject the God of war?" And across the world, in tribes and villages and cities, humanity answered. Yes. Felt the first wound. It was not in his body. It was deeper than that. It was in the place where faith lived, the place where worship gave him strength. He felt humans turning away from him, millions of them, all at once. He fell to his knees in the middle of camp. Soldiers gathered around him, but they did not help. They only watched. "Please," the God whispered. "I only wanted to protect you. I love you, all of you. You are my children." Walked up to him and looked down with cold eyes. "We are not children anymore," he said, "and we do not need a father's love. We need strength. Since you cannot give it to us, we will find it ourselves." He turned to his soldiers. "Tomorrow we take the city, and we will do it without any God's blessing. We will do it because we choose to, because we want to, because we can." The army cheered, and somewhere deep in the ground, in the space between the world and the world beyond, the other gods felt something impossible happening. A god was dying, not because an enemy had killed him, but because his own had decided he was not needed anymore. And they began to be afraid. 7 years passed after his rejection, 7 years of preparation, 7 years of building something that had never been built before. Was chosen to lead the ritual. She was not a warrior. She was not a queen. She was a simple village shaman, a woman who spoke with spirits and healed the sick, but she had something that made her perfect for this terrible task. She had lost 3 sons to war. The first died in a border skirmish when he was 16. The second died defending a bridge when he was 20. The third died in his great conquest when he was 23. 3 boys, 3 deaths. 3 times had prayed to for protection, and 3 times had failed her. But she did not hate him. That was why she was chosen. She understood him. "Tried to save my sons," she told the council of priests who came to ask for her help. "I saw him on the battlefield when my youngest died. He was crying. He was trying to stop the fighting, but he could not. He was too weak. His love made him weak." She looked at her hands, old hands now, hands that had held 3 dead boys. "A god of war who cannot watch death is useless. He gave my sons hope, and that hope made them careless. They thought he would protect them. They were wrong." The council asked her to lead the killing of a god. She agreed. The ritual needed 7 mountains. On each mountain, humans carved their complaints into the stone, not complaints about cruelty, not complaints about unfairness, complaints about kindness. On the first mountain, you healed our enemies when we needed them dead. On the second mountain, you collapsed our walls when we needed them strong. On the third mountain, you whispered peace when we needed anger. On the fourth mountain, you showed us our enemies as children when we needed to see them as monsters. On the fifth mountain, you gave us guilt when we needed permission. On the sixth mountain, you made us hesitate when we needed to be fast. On the seventh mountain, you loved us when we needed to be hard. Priests from every nation carried these words to the stone. They came from lands that had been enemies for centuries. They stood together and carved side by side. For the first time in human history, all of humanity was united. United in the decision to kill their own god. On the night of the ritual, stood in the center of the 7 mountains. Around her, thousands of priests chanted in 100 different languages, but they all said the same thing. "We do not need you. We do not want you. You are not our God anymore." And came. He walked through the air like a man walking through water. Each step was slow and painful. His bronze skin was cracked now, and through the cracks something like light bled out. His eyes were nearly dark. "I knew you would call me," he said to. His voice was barely a whisper. "I knew this day would come." Looked at him, she felt no anger, she felt no hate, she only felt tired. "You could have stopped this," she said. "You could have been what we needed. You could have loved war instead of us." Shook his great head. "No, I could not. I tried. For thousands of years I tried. I watched my children kill each other and I told myself it was good. I told myself it was holy. I told myself that death in battle was beautiful." He looked at his cracked hands. "But I could never believe it. Every death hurt me. Every scream tore at my heart. I am the god of war, but I have always hated war. I think I was broken from the beginning." The chanting grew louder. The 7 mountains began to glow with a cold, white light. Felt the power building around him. The collected will of every human on earth focused into a single purpose. Death, his death. "I could run," he said. "I could hide in the spaces between worlds. You could never truly kill me if I fought." "Will you fight?" asked. Smiled. It was a sad smile, but it was real. "No, how could I fight my own children? That is the one thing I could never do, even now, even when you are killing me." Felt tears on her face. She did not wipe them away. "I am sorry," she said. "We are not doing this because we hate you. We are doing this because we need to become something new, something harder, something that does not need permission from any god." Nodded. "I know, and I forgive you, all of you." The light grew brighter. The chanting became a roar. Every human in the world felt it happening in their dreams. They felt themselves reaching out with something deeper than hands, something stronger than muscle. They felt themselves tearing a god apart. Did not scream at first. He stood with his arms open, accepting it. But as the power grew, as his body began to dissolve into light and dust, the pain became too much. He screamed, and his scream was heard across the world. Children woke crying, animals howled, the earth itself shook. And then spoke his last words. They were not angry, they were not a curse, they were just sad. "You will become what I could not bear to watch." Then he was gone. Where he had stood, there was only a circle of burned ground. Fell to her knees and wept. Around her the priests wept too. They had done something impossible, something terrible, something necessary. Humanity had killed its own god of war. And now they would have to face their battles alone. The Galactic Council chamber was completely silent. Ambassador Park had finished telling the story. Now she stood in the center of the great hall, surrounded by thousands of alien eyes, and waited. The High Priest was the first to speak. His crystalline body was dim, as if the story had drained some of his light. "You killed your god of war," he said slowly, "because he loved you too much." "Yes," said simply. "And since then, for 10,000 years, you have fought your wars with no divine blessing, no sacred permission, no holy forgiveness afterward." Admiral stepped forward. His face was hard as iron. His scars seemed to stand out more sharply in the cold light of the council chamber. "We need no permission," he said. "When humans go to war, we decide. Not gods, not spirits, not holy men. We look at our enemies and we make a choice. If we choose to kill them, we kill them. If we choose to show mercy, we show mercy. The responsibility is ours alone." The ambassador's shell clicked rapidly. It was a sound of confusion and fear mixed together. But how do your soldiers sleep? How do they carry the weight of what they have done? Our god of war takes the guilt from our warriors. He tells them that their kills were holy. Without that, surely your soldiers must go mad. Commander Lee laughed. It was not a pleasant laugh. It was the laugh of someone who had seen things that could never be unseen. Some of us do go mad, she said. Some of us wake up screaming every night for the rest of our lives. Some of us cannot look at our own hands without seeing blood. That is the price we pay. She looked around at the alien faces. So many species, so many gods, so many creatures who had never known what it was like to fight without divine protection. Your soldiers are forgiven by their gods, continued. They can tell themselves that they did holy work. They can believe that their enemies deserve to die. They can wrap themselves in faith and never face the truth of what they have done. She stepped closer to the ambassador. He backed away, his many legs scraping against the floor. Human soldiers know the truth. We kill because we choose to, not because a god commands it, not because it is holy. We kill because sometimes killing is the only way to protect what we love, and we carry that knowledge forever. It never leaves us. It makes us cold. It makes us hard. It makes us. She paused and smiled. It was not a kind smile. It makes us very, very good at war. The ambassador spoke from his water tank. His voice bubbled up through the liquid, sounding wet and worried. If you have no god of war, what happened to his power? Divine energy cannot simply disappear. It must go somewhere. Nodded slowly. You are correct. When died, his power did not vanish. It spread. It divided itself among all humans. Every person who was alive on that night received a piece of the god of war's essence. She touched her chest. I carry a fragment of him here. So does every human who has ever been born since that day. We did not just kill our god of war. We ate him. We absorbed him. We became him. The chamber erupted in noise. Aliens shouted and screamed and made sounds that the translation machines could not handle. Fear spread through the room like fire through dry grass. The high priest raised his hand for silence. It took a long time, but eventually the noise died down. You are saying, he said carefully, that every human being is part God, that your entire species carries divine war essence inside them. We do not think of it that way, replied. We do not worship ourselves. We do not believe we are divine, but when we fight, she paused. When we truly fight, something old wakes up inside us, something that remembers what it was like to be a god. Stepped forward again. Other species ask their war gods for strength before battle. They pray for courage. They beg for victory. His hands opened and closed at his sides. Humans do not ask. We do not pray. We do not beg. We simply reach inside ourselves and take what we need. The strength is already there. It has been there for 10,000 years. The representative, a cloud of thinking gas, shifted and spoke. This explains much. We have studied human military history. Your wars are different, more total, more absolute. When humans decide to destroy something, they do not stop until it is completely gone. Yes, said, because we have no God to tell us when enough is enough. We have no divine voice saying that honor has been satisfied. We only stop when we choose to stop, and sometimes we do not choose to stop for a very long time. The ambassador spoke again, and this time his voice was shaking. What would happen if humanity went to war against the rest of the galaxy? His face did not change. That is not a question I can answer. We came to the stars in peace. We have no desire to conquer. His last gift to us was the knowledge of what war truly costs. We do not start fights. She paused and her eyes grew cold. But we finish them, always completely, whatever the cost. The council was silent for a long moment. Then the high priest spoke one last time. I understand now why your species has no god of war. You do not need one. You became one. Turn to leave. At the door of the great chamber, she stopped and looked back at the gathered aliens. 10,000 years ago, we looked at our God and found him lacking. He was soft. He was merciful. He could not give us what we needed, so we killed him and took his power for ourselves. She smiled, and every alien in the room felt a chill pass through them. When you ask why humans have no god of war, remember this. We are not beings who worship war gods. We are the beings that war gods should fear. We killed one once. We can do it again. Then she walked out, followed by In. The doors closed behind them with a sound like thunder. In the silence that followed, the ambassador turned to his aide. "Remove humans from the threat assessment list," he whispered. "And add them where?" The ambassador's gills trembled with something that might have been fear, or respect, or both. "Create a new category. Call it something that will remind us to never, ever make enemies of them." The aide waited. "Call it species that have killed gods," the ambassador said, "and mark it as a category that should only ever have one entry." Far away, aboard their transport ship heading home, Ambassador Park looked out at the stars. Somewhere deep inside her, in a place that had been passed down through thousands of generations, she felt something stir, something old, something that had once been called. It was not angry, it was not sad. It was just there, waiting, ready to wake up if it was ever needed. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Sleep, Father. We will carry your burden. We will fight our wars and bear our guilt. You can rest now." And somewhere in the depths of human souls, the last echo of a dead god smiled and was at peace.